I was watching a video by Kassiedill a couple of days ago. I haven't seen an awful lot of her videos, probably about half a dozen, something like that. And I don't agree with anything she said, but pretty much. But one of the things about Kassiedill's videos is that they are very clear, or they seem to articulate a very, very clear moral position and political position. I mean, one of the reasons why I wouldn't bother watching any more usually is because I pretty much know what her position would be on any issue. It has that kind of clarity to it, which I kind of admire in a strange way, even though I disagree with pretty much everything she says. It's a very well articulated position, free of, you know, largely free of complexity and doubt. But I watched this video of hers the other day, which was called Boycott KFC, and I put a link in the sidebar, which was unusual, because basically she was talking about how KFC source their chickens and how they treat their chickens is appalling, I think she says, or something worse to that effect. And she's basically citing, amongst other reasons, why we should boycott KFC. She's citing cruelty to animals as a good reason. I mean, I would completely agree with that, I have to say, because I mean, I have visited chicken farms at various points, industrial chicken plants, and for the most part they are really appalling places. They are I just can't think of words to describe it, but they are nightmarish scenarios, usually in complete contradistinction to the way that chickens are presented on the box. I used to live near a place called Mayfield Chicks in Lancashire, and the logo for Mayfield Chicks was this little perky cartoon chicken, you know, just kind of clearly enjoying life in the sunshine. But if you actually went into the plant, it was just an assembly line of industrialised death, really, where the chicks themselves, the newborn chicks, would be just in massive great pens, not pens really, just massive kind of trays, where they would be sexed. And if the chick was the wrong sex, it would be rejected and effectively pulped, in the way that humans are pulped in the Matrix. You know, just pulped and turned into meal of some kind. And the ones that were raised were just kind of executed in, as I say, a highly industrialised style. You know, being electrocuted, dipped into boiling water so the feathers would release, having the head sliced off, and that whole thing. It's quite interesting if you've never seen it. But Kassiedill's video, yeah, I mean, she's coming out against that industrialisation of the chicken killing process for KFC. But what was surprising about it was that it was Kassiedill doing it. And I've been thinking about that. Why was I surprised? Why would I be surprised that someone whose political position is very clear has this position, and not just because I share it, or maybe it is just because I share that particular one. But I've been thinking about it in terms of these the different kind of dimensions of morality, because it is a moral argument that she's kind of making. And Jonathan Haidt, who I've talked about before, talks about morality as having these different dimensions. It's not a single thing. We have different bases for our morality, he says. And I'll just go through them very quickly. One is to do with harm and care, and another one is to do with reciprocation, and those seem to be held by pretty much everyone, even very small children. Have a kind of inbuilt prohibition against harming somebody or caring for somebody who's hurt, even very small children, and in fact even dogs do things like that. And reciprocation, even very small children have an apparently inbuilt sense of fairness. They don't like cheating, and they don't like inequity, really. But then there's these other three dimensions that Jonathan Haidt talks about, which are deference to authority, being considered moral, it being a kind of moral good to do what you're told. In-group loyalty, again it being a morally good thing to be loyal to those people who are like you and to be exclusive to those people who are not like you. Or to set yourself up in contrast and contradistinction to those people who are not like you. And the fifth one being something to do with purity, which is more obviously a metaphorical one, in which the idea of the pure is characterised as a moral good. And the thing about Kassiedill's videos, most of them, of the ones I've seen, I've only seen half a dozen or so, most of them very clearly come out in terms of two of those dimensions, I think. They very clearly come out in terms of in-group loyalty, and they very clearly, I think, come out in terms of purity, particularly around the the anti-homosexual, anti-gay videos that she's made. I'm assuming that I'm assuming that Kassiedill is straight, and she seems to have a very strong affiliation and identification with other straight people, to the exclusion of gay people. A lot of the language that she uses about homosexuality is exclusive language, of portraying gay people as being not like her in any way, not just having a different sexual orientation, but not like her in any other ways, which is part of the exclusion process. So you say, these people are not like me, they're possibly even not entirely human, and they're on the other side of this fence that I've built around myself, that includes the people I'm loyal to and excludes the people I don't feel any need to be loyal to. So she has that very strong sense of in-group loyalty, and I think she also plays on metaphors of purity when she's talking about morality. It crops up in the language, but it also crops up in things like facial expression. When she talks about gay people or homosexuality, there's very often kind of a little curl of the lip, a little kind of micro expression of disgust going on there, which is very, very common, I think, amongst people who have negative attitudes towards gay people. And that, I think, is, as I say, the playing out of a purity metaphor in the language of the body, so to speak, in the language of facial expression. That was most graphically described to me by a student actually a few years ago. I've had quite a lot of students who've been gay, and this one student, he'd had a lot of problems with being abused or being bullied by people who were doing sports degrees mostly at the college I was at the time, and he was quite distressed by a lot of that, as you might imagine. And one of the things he said about these people is that they clearly had a phobia, he said. And this is going to sound a bit graphic, so I apologise. He said they had a phobia about getting shit on their dick. That's what he said. These people have got a phobia about getting shit on their dick, and they're taking it out on me. And although he was being dramatic for effect, I think he has a point. I think there is something to do with a sense of contamination, or a sense of the toxic, and a sense of the kind of physiologically disgusting about the way that that morality is played out by people who find homosexuality morally wrong. I think it plays out in that kind of purity dimension, where they associate homosexual practices certainly with dirtiness and contamination and impurity. And I can see that in Kassiedill. I suppose what I've never seen there before, which I saw in this one, which of course is always present, I shouldn't have ever not thought about it, was this harm care thing. Because clearly if she's talking about the protecting the rights or desire to stop cruelty to chickens in KFC production lines, then that's an expression of care. She cares about the well-being of these chickens, even though they are even more of an out-group than homosexuals, which is slightly odd. I suppose she's only talking about straight chickens. But it just demonstrates to me, partly within myself, that I need to be a little bit more careful about making moral judgments or making assumptions about people based on limited exposure to their moral frameworks. And also something interesting there to do with possible disjunctions between different aspects of morality. How a person can be what appears to be kind of vehemently loyal to their in-group, to the point of being actively insulting to out-group people on the one hand, but at the same time extend that other dimension of morality to do with harm and care to people, or in this case animals, far outside their in-group. It's a bit of a paradox, or possibly a bit of hypocrisy, but fascinating.